Yeah, wow. So many. Probably also a few that are new to the whole idea. Who hasn't been working with Holacracy yet? Who's quite new to it yet? Also quite a few, yeah? All right, well, welcome all of you. Today we'll talk a little bit not only about the positive sides of Holacracy, but we'll also pinpoint, or we'll talk about the pain points of working in a holacratic environment. So things that are hard to solve within Holacracy, or just things that you run into. We have Ruben Timmerman, the founder of Springest, who will be talking today. We have Gabriela from Energized, who will introduce Energized a little bit. And we have Thomison from Holacracy One and Nynke.org. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit more for the people who are new here, where you are right now. You're at the Springest office, and Springest is a platform for comparing educational courses and trainings. It was founded in 2008, and we implemented Holacracy in what, 2012?
Yeah.
Yeah. I only started here one and a half years ago. I was hired to set up a sales and customer support team. Springest was already working with Holacracy, so I kind of had to jump into that as well. It was a new concept for me. But yeah, only a week ago I got this new role called Evangelism Events, which has one of the accountabilities of organizing events just like these, which makes you all look at me right now. Well, yeah, that's a little bit about Springest and about me, how I got here. Ruben will tell you a little bit more about that. So why don't you take the floor? Ruben Timmerman is the founder of Springest. Give him an applause.
The stage is mine again.
Yeah.
I have to first do some other stuff actually here. Switch screens. So, first of all, let's congratulate Nynke on organizing this whole thing. Thank you very much. Picking up a new role within, let's say, one day or something like that. That's how it works in Holacracy sometimes. Gabriela emailed me like, "Hey, who will do the events?" And it's something that falls under a circle that I'm the lead link of, our evangelism circle, where we talk or sort of show how we work. And Holacracy one of the sort of pillars below that. And the role wasn't filled, so I had the role, and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to organize it. I don't have time for it. I'm sorry. So recruited Nynke into my circle, and it all went pretty well actually. So thanks to Holacracy for that, because there were clear accountabilities on how to, or not how to, but more like what it entails to organize meetups. So that was very nice. So thanks to Nynke. Today with Tom here and the rest of the crew of Encode and Energize as well, but especially Encode, it's a bit about how you run Holacracy outside of the Holacracy part. And that's how I chose the topic of my quick talk, which is about strategy. Strategy is something, of course, that you should have within your Holacracy, but it's not very clearly defined how you should do that. And I've recently written an article about it. I'll get back to that as well. But I just want to talk a little bit about how we set strategy, how strategy helps people in Springest to energize their roles, to set priorities, to choose projects, to choose metrics, to choose what they do on a daily basis. So I'll just show you a few things about how we do that. Basically, if you start running your company as a Holacracy or with Holacracy, you either want to go from being an oil tanker to being, let's say, a lot of small boats that go fast and are very agile, or you want to stay, a few boats. If you have a startup with 10 people, you are already probably, all in one speedboat, but you want to grow and you don't want to grow into an oil tanker. So for us, it was the second. We were with 10 people or 11 when we started running with Holacracy, and now we are with 34, I think, and going to 36 next month, so it's going pretty fast. But then you have this problem because you can put all the oil in all the speedboats, but then all the speedboats can, steer themselves dynamically, as we say. But you want to get somewhere. It's not very useful if all the speedboats or all the boats go in different directions. So you have to make a fleet. You have to set a target or a direction for all the boats. But they have to steer themselves, and the steering, or where you are going and how you are doing that, most of that is structured in Holacracy. And the strategy, that's the direction you want to go in. So how does Holacracy sort of help you set strategy? Well, not very much actually. You have the constitution that defines how you make decisions about how you structure your organization. And the word strategy is only once in the entire constitution. This might surprise you because strategy is of course very important if you want to go somewhere, if you want to become, in our case, the Amazon of learning. That's our ambition. So the word strategy is in there once. Basically what it says is the lead link of a circle, and there's always a general company circle, which you could say is the highest, or the parent circle, or whatever. And the lead link of that circle could set a strategy that then basically should be broken down in the company's other circles. So that should set direction, but this is basically what the Constitution says. The lead link can set a strategy for the circle, which are heuristics that guide the circle's roles in self-identifying priorities on an ongoing basis. But there's nothing more. So how do you actually do that? And I think many companies do it in different ways, and we've chosen to do it with OKRs, objectives and key results. Time's too short today to go into what OKRs are, so I'll just show you what it looks like to give you a general idea of how you might be able to set very concrete strategies without managing or without setting targets that people will have to adhere to, or that people will feel, if I don't reach this target, then I haven't done a good job, because that's not what strategy is about for us. And that also wouldn't really work well within Holacracy, where you should be able to choose direction dynamically. So how do we do that? I've stolen a very nice image from Gabriela here. She made a nice overview of how Springest circles currently look, with the big difference that there are many more roles. I think we have about 200 roles in Springest for those 35 people. On average, people hold 7 roles, so it's nice to know. And as you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles. So this is Springest. So basically, the strategy should be set for the broadest circle, which we call alignment, because we want all the circles and all the roles to be aligned and go in sort of the same direction, so that we will achieve our goals. And within that, you see the other circles. And some of them are concerned with building the product, some of them are more concerned with selling it. And for instance, the smooth operations circle is about how the company is run, basically financially, and a lot of HR-like functions are in there. So this is what Springest looks like. Oh yeah, one more thing, because every circle has a lead link. Lead links are accountable for setting strategy, or they can do so if they want. So what we've said is we use OKRs, and here you see what our OKRs look like. You don't have to read it, it's not about understanding what's said there, but you see on the left that for each quarter we have set OKRs. And what you see here literally is the OKR that's now sort of selected is the OKR of the broadest circle, the alignment circle. And it has an objective, which is stay healthy while playing our end game. This was our objective for this quarter. And then on the right you see the key results, which should be measurable and very ambitious. That's one of the traits of OKRs. The key results should be very ambitious, and this means it's not expected that you will make all of them. It would be very nice if you can achieve a few of them, but it's not expected. It's more a very big, hairy, audacious goal, if you will. So on the right there are some key results: profit and positive cash flow, a certain number of weekly booking revenue, very detailed. So these are the goals or the key results of the alignment circle. And then below that, you see other objectives and key results for the other circles. And the lead links of those circles have set those key results themselves based on the alignment. So it breaks down. Within the circles, the roles themselves decide how they want to achieve the OKRs or how they want to prioritize. And they have roles and accountabilities, and roles have purposes as well. And the question is always, choosing. You have to, you have many roles. You cannot energize all of them all the time. You have to make choices. And the OKRs hopefully help with that. But very often there is an OKR, and then you have daily reality. And sometimes you cannot work on the OKR because you are responsible. You're accountable for certain things, and that's the key for us here. That Holacracy allows you to choose, and the OKRs help you to choose. The OKRs don't tell you what to do. It's more like if you have a choice, then look at the OKRs and see what is most important to your circle at this time, and thus to the role that you fill. So it breaks down. That's the important point here. Then I want to show you a little bit of how we break that down operationally with Holacracy. So what you see here is the overview of metrics in a certain circle's tactical meeting. So most of you will know what a tactical meeting is. You have metrics that you review to surface tensions and to see if there's things to improve or projects to initiate or tasks to be done. So here you see the metrics of a certain of the alignment circle actually, and you see that the roles, which are actually circles at this level, report these metrics. And next to it you see the people that hold those roles. So they are the red links of those circles for people that know Holacracy. So here's how the strategy breaks down. And what happens is that if a new OKR is set, the people in that circle filling the roles will look at the OKR and think, hey, are the metrics that we are tracking, do they fit the OKR? If not, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what's important. So you see the metrics change actually usually after a new OKR has been set. They can change later as well, but the OKR usually triggers a little change. Not completely, that would be weird, but it changes direction a little bit. So you see the metrics here, you see the monthly metrics and the weekly metrics. We have two, some we track only on a monthly basis, some both. My remote was broken. Here you see what we then look at actually in our tactical meeting. You see this is the basic sheet of our weekly metrics. This is, I think, half of the metrics we track on a weekly basis. And then on the bottom, for the people that can see it, you see there are about 20 tabs with many more metrics. I think per circle there are about 30 metrics that are tracked average. So here you see it being broken down from OKRs, or very generic objectives, to specific measurable key results, and then to specific, even more specific measurable monthly and weekly metrics. Those metrics are not targets, by the way. They are just metrics that we track, that we discuss, that we see, hey, there's a change between last year or from last month. Should anything change given the OKRs, the strategy that we currently have? That's what they're for. Then from metrics we go to projects. You define things to do, and if it's more than one action, GTD, getting things done, dictates, you make a project out of it. So here you see, doesn't matter again what is set there, but you see a list of projects in alignment in the broadest circle, and per circle below that the projects are listed. And they have a status, it's active, or it's waiting for, or it's future, as you see here. Like you would expect, or like you might have seen in Glassfrog as well, we use a bit of a different system. It's called Asana. And you see in the why now, which is something that we have made a policy for. If you make a project, it has to have a why now. And usually the why now, what is a description of why do you want to do this now? Why is this a good idea? And it should almost always have some connection to the OKR, because that's what we want to achieve. That's where we want to go. So it's a bit weird if you have a project that is apparently important enough to do, but it doesn't have a connection to the OKR. So here you see an example. It's something that's being built into one of our pages of our website that somehow connects to a specific OKR. And that's how it should be. There should always be a link between what you do and the direction that the company wants to go in. And all of these things are defined by the circles and the roles. This is not something that is set top down. The only thing that is set top down, by the lead link is we roughly want to go there. And this is how we can measure if we're getting closer. And then the roles decide which projects they do, which actions they do, etc. And I think that's basically how we do it. I want to point you to a few resources before we maybe do some questions, if anybody is sort of interested. 2 Medium pages, mine and Energized, where Gabriela writes a lot of stuff. We've both written about OKRs and how we set strategy in much more detail with more screenshots, stuff like that. So check those out. And if you want to look at people working at Springest doing these kind of tactical things in a tactical meeting, you can join us for a Holacracy Safari every Tuesday morning. Just go to springest.nl and book a safari there actually for €50, and then you can just join the meeting and see what it's like to work in Holacracy. And that's about what I wanted to tell you. If you want to reach out to me, please do. I am an evangelist. I'm the lead link of the evangelism circle, so I'm accountable for spreading the word on how we work. So, I'm accountable for talking to you, so please do. I'll be gone though pretty soon tonight, but if you want to reach out, please do. So thanks for listening, and let me know if there are any questions later.
Questions?
Yeah, Ruben, thank you. So you have your strategy and your OKRs, which are quite dynamic and change, I think, on a monthly basis. But then you also have your purpose, your company purpose, which is more static and more long term. So how's the interplay between these? Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah. So the purpose of Springest is literally the purpose of the alignment circle technically is everybody learns through Springest, the learnest company of all. So it says something about where we want to go. Everybody in the world learns through Springest, and internally we sometimes say we want to be the Amazon of learning. But we also want to do it in a certain way, which we call the learnest way, the most adaptable. And the OKR only says something about how do we think we want to get there this quarter. What is the most important thing to do first? And that's something you change. Something that has more leverage now. For instance, this quarter we are a bit more focused on just growing with the current set of models and features that we have, because that makes sense given given sort of the world around us. And we expect next quarter to be a bit more about not optimizing but adjusting, to introduce new features or new models. And that's a very typical thing you have at a startup. Sometimes you're focused on growing and sometimes you're focused on innovating. And that's a typical change that you have in the OKR, all the while trying to become the purpose that we have. Yeah.
In a company where you don't, where nobody gets told what to do, how do you educate people to self-manage, basically? Because I think the challenge is there.
Yeah. So to connect it to this, how do you educate people to make their own choices and not see the OKRs as targets? Because learning is a very broad topic. I can only say that you will have to invest a lot in learning if you want people to join a Holacracy. Depends a bit though. I think what a startup doesn't have to, learn a lot to become holacratic, because they're still young and agile and very fast. And it's like a younger person with less experience in the corporate world will have to unlearn less stuff. So they usually adapt faster to holacracy. That's one interesting thing that we've noticed. So then onto the question, how do you teach people this kind of stuff? I think in general, people know this kind of stuff. They are very able to live their lives. They make decisions all the time. And if you give them enough information in clarity, which OKRs very much help us to do, and metrics help you, sort of track what you're doing. Am I doing good? Should I adjust my course? That's actually how you help them. And it's more a matter of unlearning the things that they used to do before, which is wait for permission or ask permission or gather consensus instead of just making a decision from their roles. So it's more like if you see someone moving slow, not defining new projects or trying to gather consensus or approval from someone, you have to say you don't need that. You could just do it right away. So and I'm of course a person that they would go to ask for permission, and I will then just say, what do you think? What do you want to? What do you need me for? And if you want my input, I can give it, but you don't need it. And usually that's enough to sort of send them away, make me productive again. That's the most important thing is this iterative approach. It's not about telling them up front. It's more about, hey, it seems like you're looking for permission. I don't know why. Read your roles again. It's all yours. Yeah.
Another question about the strategy setting. Are the OKRs set in meetings, or is everybody individually?
Right, so how do you actually set them? Yeah, I didn't talk about that. I have a bit about that in the article, of course. The lead link is responsible. So I can do it on my own. I can just pull them out of thin air. I can make them random, whatever I want to do. Like with most things in Holacracy, or all of them actually, unless there are sort of policies around it, it's up to you. So what I actually did was I made a proposal in governance to create a role called strategy advisor, and Rick is one of my strategy advisors. I literally made a role and then ask 2 people to help me with strategy, and we have dinner at least once a quarter, and then we brainstorm a bit about where we're going and what's important this quarter. So I do it like that. In other circles, they might do it in a group, talk about it, but it really doesn't matter. The lead link in the end has to set it. And that's what matters, and how they want to do it. If they want to do it all by themselves, if they want to gather input, that's up to them.
And it's set for a circle, not individually
For a role. No, we set it for circles. Some people have tried to use OKRs as well for roles, but what I've noticed is that usually you end up with projects, because it's so detailed that it's pretty much the same as a project, only that the key result will be very measurable, and a project usually isn't a metric or something. A project is something you do, not something you achieve. So what you then end up with is, like, for every project you will have a key result that measures if you completed the project successfully or something. So we've found that it's not really useful.
Thank you.
Cool. Any final ones?
It's maybe related, because I was wondering, because I come from a very traditional company, the corporate world, and to me the strategy sounds a little bit as to someone telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage, like you give the power to the people helping you setting the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, because I think there's
Yeah.
to me it feels like a thin line.
Yeah, so the OKR or the strategy tells you roughly where we want to go as a circle. Well, that's the first thing. It's not role level, so you still have to interpret it for your role. So that's the first disconnect, or the distance between, saying where do we want to go and how to get there. How to get there is your choice. So that's I think the biggest difference actually, that it's at a different level. You can never achieve the OKRs on your own or with 1 or 2 roles. So it will require further down drilling, and that's something you have to do within your roles, probably with other roles in the circle as well. So I think that's the biggest one.
The challenge I have is with the lead circle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one sort
Yeah,
of
the general
higher
circle. Yeah.
So there's my.
And what are you afraid of, or where do you think it becomes hard?
Yeah, because it sounds like that some lead circles deciding what the other circles
Yeah,
need to do.
and that's true.
So how do
in
you
a certain way.
influence? What's the way back?
I think the most important thing to realize is that indeed we have a goal. And on alignment level, in our case alignment is general circle level, that's very clear and that's set. And that's where we want to go. It doesn't tell you how to, it also doesn't tell you sort of what to do to get there, but it does tell you where we want to go, and that's pretty strict. That's something we shouldn't forget. We're not, just doing this for fun. It's a lot of fun actually. We want to get somewhere, and that's very clear. So that's where we differentiate, I think. And the goal is so vague in a way that you have to sort of figure out how to get there, how to create projects, which ones to prioritize. And something very important that I talked to with someone about today is that you still have your roles and your accountabilities, and you have the OKR, and then you have to decide which one to pick. And that's very often a matter of interpretation and very sort of localized prioritization. It's not very easy actually.
And if you don't feel the goal where you're heading, then you must decide for yourself. Okay,
Yeah.
I have to leave or something.
If you don't agree, for instance.
Yeah.
Then you could, let's say,
How do you
drop your roles and get out of the circle if you don't want to do those things.
Yeah.
And if you don't have any roles, then you might have a problem with, in our case, the contracts and salaries role. So there are sort of escapes there. What's interesting today, I was talking to Annemarieke, and she said, the OKR is to get more bookings, sort of roughly, but there are people asking us questions. I don't really have time for that because I want to generate more bookings. So I said, okay, I hear you. And she was wondering, like, how much time should I spend on each? And I said, what do you think? And she thought a bit, and maybe you can sort of tell the people what happened, because it was an actual case between OKR versus, things you wanted to do.
Well, I also saw another OKR.
Oh, and by the way, Annemarieke has been working here for 2 weeks?
1.5 weeks.
1.5 weeks. This is a tough one.
Yeah, well, I found another OKR which was more about the level of satisfaction of our providers, so the people offering trainings. And I connected all the questions to that and thought maybe that's also an important OKR to enhance that level of satisfaction. And then I looked around me and saw that many other people were working on the bookings, and that I was currently the only one answering questions. And I thought, well, maybe then if the bookings are already being generated so well, then I should focus on the questions, because that's also an OKR. But maybe on another day that would be different, depending on the people that are there or how it's going with the questions. And
Yeah, what I really liked about that might have not been my first choice, because I wouldn't have known. Because she's just looking around herself, and I don't see that because I'm somewhere else and I'm working on something else, literally. And she made the choice based on the presently known data, which is all around her. And this is exactly the power. Like, I wouldn't have been able to say, oh yeah, 30% on that and 70 on that. You know, what would I have based it on? I just hope and trust that she will make a good choice based on the goal I set. And tomorrow it will be different, and I don't have to talk to her about that. She'll be able to do that herself. And that was very, very cool for me, actually, and it ties into this. Cool. I think we'll have to wrap it up, right? Oh, well, final one then? Yeah? Yeah, I'm looking at you. You're the boss here.
What qualities are you looking for in your recruitment to make sure people fit into this way of working? Or are there qualities you look for?
Yeah, there are. Things we are not looking for are skills. Literally, like specific things you can do. Like experience is not so important, or oh, you have done a lot of sales, or you know how to do Photoshop. The two most important things are learning speed. So how fast do you adapt to a new environment? How fast do you ask questions? How fast do you sort of teach yourself something, look up stuff? That's one. And the other is sort of handling speed, which is very much connected to it. Like how fast do you switch roles? Or how quick are you on your feet? How easy are you to interpret data and make a decision? Stuff like that. Those things are much more important because they're better predictors of how fast you will learn, and that's something we need more than something you can already do. I think those are the main two things, and you can find those in anyone. Also, if you have a lot of corporate experience, you can still be quick and on your feet, but you might not understand all the stuff we do. But that's no problem because we do trials, so people always work with us for 1 or 2 or even 3 days before they enter the company, before we even offer them a contract. And 1 in 3 of those people we actually offer a contract or hire. And then we just throw them into the deep end, which is a pool with lava. It's a bit different. It's not just the deep end, it's also very hot. we give you roles and a set of projects and tasks that have been requested to that role, and we say, good luck. And then one of the tasks will invariably be, here are the OKRs, choose. And then we'll see if they gather input or if they ask questions, and if they don't, then we tell them to, and if they then still don't, then we push them a bit more like, hey, it's probably too much work, time to gather some input, and if it then doesn't work, then you don't have the handling or the learning speed. That's what we look for mostly. Cool. Well, thanks guys for the attention. You know where to find me.
All right, thank you, Ruben. That was good to start with. Maybe you want to grab another drink before we go to our next speaker. The fridge is open for everyone. Grab a beer, grab some wine, have a snack.
It's amazing. I mean, study like this. I'll talk you into it.
Thank you. Yeah, so one of you asked a question to Ruben, which made me remember when I first started here. The question was like, how do you teach people how to work with Holacracy? How do you do that? And before I worked at Springest, I was working at this large corporate organization as well. I was working under a manager, and my manager, she was the typical manager. I was working in sales as well. I would have a lot of ideas like, how can we improve what we do? Why don't we try this? Why don't we do this new approach? And her answer would always be like, no, you don't have to think about that. No, just let your manager think about that. No, that's not something you need to do. So I felt like I was being kept like so small until I started working at Springest. So I did the same with Ruben because that's what I was used to. Ask permission from your manager before you do something. So I went to Ruben like, hey, yeah, why don't we try this? Or why don't we do this approach? And he would look at me and he would say, why are you asking me this? Why don't you just do it? The biggest difference, that for me, made me love Holacracy. I got so much freedom to fulfill my roles the way that I saw fit, to try all my ideas, as long as they're in line with the OKRs, as long as I was paying attention to my accountabilities. I could choose how I wanted to do my roles. So much freedom gives you a very high feeling of trust and gives you so much intrinsic motivation. I don't think there's anything else that can do that for you the way that Holacracy can. So that's a little bit more about my take on this and when I first started at Springest with working with Holacracy. We also have Gabriela here from Energized. She will introduce Energize a little bit and also tell a bit more about her experience using Holacracy at her organization. So give an applause.
Just testing. Perfect. I don't know how this is actually stable, but let's give it a try.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Gabriela, you already heard, and I'm part of Energize.org for about 1.5 years now. And I will start with admitting that I'm pretty nervous. Because how we say in Holacracy, it's not my role. It was supposed to be somebody else speaking today. But in the end, it landed up with me, and I just picked it up as an individual action. Is also kind of a holacratic, way of thinking about how we do stuff. And I decided to do it very light. So I hope you will find, some kind of maybe joy, maybe value, nature, in my 15 minutes or so talk. And after that, I will be happy to answer some questions around Holacracy. I will start with introducing Energized. So just a few sentences about us and a few photos. Actually, can use remote, right? So Energized, all we do is basically we help organizations to introduce Holacracy. As simple as that. One of these organizations or examples is right here, right now, and that's Springest. And I would say that it's probably one of the organizations that makes us most proud, because it's the most mature Holacracy, I think, stage in the Netherlands at this point. We are purpose-driven Holacracy nerds or Holacracy geeks, depends which name somebody uses. Sometimes we say first, sometimes the other. What's special, I think, about Energize, but it also comes with, I think, Holacracy, maybe not in all the cases, but certainly for us, is the flexible working hours, and that bakes in with, self-management, a lot of trust, and a lot of transparency. And when I say transparency, I don't mean just the way we work, so that everybody can access at any time projects, actions, etc. We go kind of to the extreme, which means also transparency into, for example, partnership agreements, or transparency into how much who makes, etc. I should probably say, you can see here several photos from client work So as you can see, in different kind of environments, and so far it's been about 40 organizations in the Netherlands, and I think out of it maybe 35 or 6 here, and the rest abroad, mostly Germany. Cool thing is, we don't have office, which allows us to work from wherever we want. Example from this year, I've worked from I think 5 different countries, including Austria, US, that's me jumping from rocky steps in Philadelphia, and Krakow, and that's not far away from Innsbruck. So yeah, that's a nice part to high transparency, high trust, self-management, and just enjoy your life, And also another thing that we are very proud of as a team is our tribe. So we really try to pay attention to how we also find ourselves as people with each other. Well, as we don't have an office, you can imagine we don't see each other every day. So it's rather on, I don't know, bi-weekly basis or several months, sometimes even of not seeing, besides the computer, which is not really good. So we organize a lot of retreats and Samenwerkdag, or something around that pronunciation. You can see some of us here, so that's Esther, Diederik, Joost, again Diederik, Hans, myself, and these are actually kids of one of our colleagues, because we really try to have healthy balance of energy and between our areas of life. So yeah, I was thinking, how did this love story happen in a way, And I would like to share with you several steps that happened on my way to actually, become part of this beautiful journey. That's me still in Sweden with milk choklad, studying back then. So yeah, the journey becomes, I don't know, about 2.5 years ago when I was studying my master's degree at Stockholm Business School. And back then I started being interested more and more in alternative ways of approaching work and thinking about organizations. And I got to actually cooperate with such beautiful companies as Spotify, which back then, not knowing Holacracy, seemed like, wow, one of the most progressive things I've ever heard of. Now the perspective has changed, of course. So at this beautiful progressive university, I had a lot of progressive professors. And one of them, at some point, encouraged us to, stay true to your passion and write some kind of essay about something that you're really, passionate about. So I thought, hell yeah, extreme self-organization. I wrote about Valve and also about Holacracy. And I thought it was my best essay ever because I was so intrinsically motivated, what Nynke was talking about. So I was kind of surprised to learn that my professor looked somehow like this. No, you didn't. But that would be actually kind of a nicer version because it was closer to that. A very emotional, I would say, emotionally grounded denial of this cannot happen. You need to have leaders, you need to have some kind of hierarchy going on there based on people. So I totally get that, he's been working and living in this old paradigm as the majority of us for quite a few decades. I'm not gonna say how old he was, but quite a few. So it looked somewhat like this. So I'm in the back, in case you wonder, right? So it was a rather funny situation when I think about it now. However, back then it did bring some kind of emotions, and I was thinking truth is, I did prove that these organizations are there. They are doing quite well, So there is something to it. However, his response was based on very kind of emotionally grounded level. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna just check it out, and I'm gonna join one of these organizations. And this is how I ended up drinking coffee with Diederik and Esther, one of summer days last year, 1.5 years ago, and having one of my best goat sandwiches ever, by the way, here in Amsterdam. And after this 2.5 hours pleasurable talk, we just sat not long after, maybe 4 days, not sure now. Diederik was back then in partnership role. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's try it out, how it's gonna work out. And I started as an intern, which was called back then, as an impact researcher. So that was my first role, and the role was about, you know, investigating in what ways do we influence companies and how do they change in this, you know, transformative movement that we start with them into holacracy. And then it just, you know, grew and grew and grew, and now I'm about having, I think, 13 or actually even 14 roles, because I just got assigned one yesterday. And the roles differ between partnership, which is HR heavily based, so onboarding, offboarding, recruitment, etc. Through community, you could tell I'm kind of quasi standing here out of that role, but I definitely helped to organize it out of that role. Marketing to impact researcher still, one of the big roles in our delivery circle. And then going, you know, to the client side, so actually working with clients and helping them implement holacracy. So it's been a pretty amazing journey, I must say. And I think this is one of my favorite features of holacracy. I'm not sure how this plays across the people and what are others' experiences, but for me, I don't think it would be possible to develop that much within 1.5 years in any kind of regular, traditional paradigm. I really doubt it. So that's pretty cool, you know, joining all your talents, all your skills, all your drives, energy across different dimensions of organization, because why not, right? Yeah, so this guy is me, okay? You can see similarity, right? I actually wanted to, you know, find these cool glasses, but yeah, failed heavily. There were several moments that I would like to share with you, and maybe some of the people that already actually have experienced holacracy will recognize them too. That along this, you know, 1.5 years journey, went kind of like, all right, now I understand what you mean. Because you read a lot, you know, about governance meetings, tactical meetings, all these things when you're interested in holacracy, but the truth is, the practice itself, this is what gives you kind of wings, you know? This is how you can actually feel it's a heck of, you know, powerful system that we're having here. So, 3 aha points, right? First one, governance meeting. So what the governance meeting is, probably the majority of you know. How many of you know? So I maybe don't use this time for explaining. Okay, I will just brief. So governance meeting is one of the meetings that we have in holacracy, and it's working on organization, right? So this is where we make decisions like coming up with new roles and coming up with new accountabilities and changing our purposes, etc., etc. It's not a meeting where we work on what is our next project or what is our next action. So that's an operational stuff that's happening during the tactical meeting. So you see, this was first of the ahas moment, because truth is we don't have this at all in regular way of, you know, working. This is one of these things that comes with holacracy, and I haven't seen it anywhere, frankly, even in at such progressive organization as Spotify. So that was one of the like, oh, so I can actually influence how our organization is structured, you know, and actually there is a process provided for that makes me feel like it's easy. I just throw things in and then things get out, you know, as simple as that, with the help of facilitator, of course. So that was one of it. Second one is about tensions. So I divided into sensing and processing, because for me, I think this is how it worked. So I entered holacracy world, and I couldn't really, like, from day one sense the tensions and then process them. It took me some time, and maybe like even 2 months, to actually start seeing the tensions and like being, you know, trusting the process to actually throw them in and get some kind of result out of it. And I do think that in traditional paradigm, why it is such a wow is because we are not used to sensing. So our awareness around the reality that we are part of is, I think, quite lowered. So as you enter this kind of organization as holacracy or any kind of other emergent fully self-organizing system I could imagine, you start to pay more attention to what is happening around you and how you can contribute to something greater than yourself. So So that was the second thing that I started like observing and saying, oh, okay, this is how it works. So I can actually sense things and then process them for the evolution of us all, you know? And the third and the last thing is role relationship, which is a funny one, and I still think that I am kind of learning it after 1.5 years of this journey. So in Holacracy we have a lot of roles, as you've seen before. And we act out of these roles. So if I, for example, approach Diderik and I need something from a bookkeeper, I don't say, hey Diderik, you know, I need this, could you please, yeah, kind of buy in because I need something. No, it's just very straightforward. Hey Diderik, as a bookkeeper, in my marketing role I need X, Y, Z. Could you please take on a project? Very easy, very straightforward, very transparent way of communication. And with feedback is the same. And I think this is actually, this point, the feedback that we are still kind of learning about, that feedback is not about us, it's not about people, it's not personal, it's impersonal, it's about your roles. And the roles in the end, how they develop, that plays into how well we as a collective reach our purpose. And that's beautiful because we don't have to use anymore, you know, our personal relationships to reach things or, you know, to kind of, yeah, leave them sacred, right? I think that Christian is kind of a specialist about, you know, talking about these different spaces, but that's a beautiful thing, and it takes some time, but it rewards you a lot. So I would like to finish it with my funny, not funny, but yeah, it's kind of funny, slide from the beginning. And you know, after preparing this presentation, I was pondering around, so would this story be true without Holacracy? And to be honest, I think it wouldn't. I think that even if we had the same people on board, but we would have some kind of, you know, I don't know, flat, let's call it flat, which is still hierarchy usually. You know, some kind of weird hybrid or I don't know, something else, it would feel completely different. And I'm sure that we wouldn't go as fast and feeling as great together as we do now with Holacracy. Having said that, I think that I finished. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Where you find all these gifts, you know, these
the images. Yeah. Your questions in the audience?
Do you find yourself ever encouraging people to implement, or those that run into you are like, let's do it, we're ready? I mean,
yeah. We do not sell Holacracy. We kind of think about ourselves, I think, this way. So we think that this system is so great, and there are so many already experienced companies in the dance that prove that it really works. One of them being Springest. That we don't feel like there is a point for us to, you know, encourage people, like, you know, try to push it in an old marketing sense of way, right? We just kind of refer them to, hey, here is a bunch of resources in case you're interested. Here is Springest and their Safari, you know, just check it out. And to be honest, usually organizations so far, they just get interested, they read more, you know, experience maybe somewhat, and they just come to us and ask if we could help with this journey, you know, because it's not only, I would say, complicated journey, but it also takes some time. So it's good to have, I guess, some kind of help that is somewhat experienced with, you know, this stuff. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. And
yeah.
I'm thinking too, how many are there in Intelligence now? How many clients?
How many? Well, I think that it was Diderik that calculated this not a long time ago, and it was around 40. I don't know exactly, like, what is the proportion. Huge majority in the Netherlands, that's for sure. That's for sure. But here we calculate also in not only Energize, as Energize has been on this earth for about 2 years, not even that. But we also calculate in Dideriks and Koens, who are the founders, legal founders of Energized Experience.
And yeah, how many of these companies actually stick to Holacracy, or have they been kind of dropping out, saying it's too difficult or something? What's your experience?
We do have experience with some implementations. I would say maybe 2, 3. that either have implemented Holacracy and after implementation running for a while, and a little bit like Medium, they decided to, as an evolution, right, goes, they decided to just go further into something else that suits them best at their current context. There was also, I think, one organization that just switched kind of back to more or less what they used to have. But to be honest, I haven't been engaged with these cases myself, so, and as you've seen, I haven't been that much in the Netherlands. So, yeah, it's hard to me, for me to tell you exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
What for you personally was the most difficult to adopt Holacracy, and what do you see in your clients? What's the biggest obstacle or biggest thing to learn or unlearn?
There are so many things. Damn, it's really hard to pick one thing. I think that there are so many things that you really need to unlearn and learn from kind of the beginning, you know? Cool thing is that the truth is 95% probably or whatever, huge majority of us, if you enter a company that's starting with Holacracy, everybody needs to unlearn, you know, so we're all together on this journey. There are some exceptions that seem to be just born into this system, maybe Nynke is one of them, so that they don't have a lot of unlearning, maybe some tweaks. So I wouldn't really pinpoint, I think, anything specific, because it all sits here, you know, we're used to certain things. We're used to waiting for permission, we're used to not having, you know, ownership, not driving our roles, not being leaders, because there used to be always someone else in our life to do that for us. So it just takes practice and support, I guess, of the community, of the people around you, that makes it much easier, and then the rewards are great. At least from our experience, from the companies that have been running on Holacracy for some time now.
All right, one last question.
How do you grow awareness in people about tensions?
Yeah.
Regarding tensions, how do you grow awareness in people around them?
So we mostly, you know, when we implement Holacracy, how it looks like, we just visit an organization for several consecutive weeks, actually probably months, and we have different kind of lessons with them. So some of them are called driving lessons, and this is when we literally step into the meeting process and we just help them and facilitate them with that. And that is already the first point where you can really do somewhat of coaching around what is attention, right? So tension in Holacracy is not something bad. We actually see it as part of our evolution. So we want people to feel tensions. We don't want to, you know, put it under the rug or bitch around coffee machine. That's not, you know, what we're looking for here. So that's, I guess, the beginning of you know, of trying to teach people or help them around this area. But then there are, you know, any kind of like regular situations. I'm just going to talk to you during, I don't know, one of the breaks, and we're just going to have a conversation, and in that I can maybe, you know, ask you how you're doing, have you considered that or that, and give you some kind of options. It's just, you know, working face to face with people on daily basis and observing and giving them options and tips around processing tensions. Because indeed, there are many, many ways you can process tensions in Holacracy. One time I wrote an article even when I discovered this. Oh yeah, there is always one, you know, more than one way to process your tension. So if you want to read about that, I encourage you to go to Medium, that's under Energized name, and there is an article about that too. Right. Yeah. Guys, are we okay with continuing straight away? Yeah? So, I would like to intro. Yeah?
Yeah. All right, we're just gonna, time-wise, we're just gonna continue straight away. I just had, yeah. So, Gabriela was talking a little bit about her points, that her aha moments. Are we okay? Yeah. Her aha moments, and one of them was tensions, processing them and sensing them. What I wanted to. Sorry. What I was thinking about, I had the same thing a little bit with tensions. That was one of my aha moments too. So I started working here a year and a half ago, setting up this sales and support team. One of the things I learned was tensions, but also letting tensions be there. Let others feel the pain, and don't try to solve things for other people. Because if you keep solving things for other people, then things don't get fixed. I can give you maybe one concrete example. For our sales and support team, which we started like a year and a half ago, I started this by myself. Currently we are with, I think, maybe 13 or 15 learning advisors, so our team has grown quite big. We're still growing. If you're looking for a job, find me later, because we're still hiring. But so we have around 12 learning advisors. They're all calling people, ask them how we can help them find the course they're looking for, help them learn. And we have 2 people who are on inbound, so they answer the phone and they answer all the emails. One of their accountabilities is inbox 0 at the end of the day. So our inbox has to be there. There cannot be any emails at the end of the day. They're accountable for that. Sometimes it happens that there are a lot of emails and they cannot finish it on their own. So they start asking other people for help. Like, hey, I cannot get this inbox empty before the end of the day. Please help me out. Please help me answer all these emails. But what happens then is that our lead link, who's accountable for dividing roles, assigning roles to people, at the end of the day, he will only see an empty inbox, because all of us helped and chipped in, and nobody will sense that we have a resource problem. We need more people handling the inbox. This is just like a small example of how actually fixing things for other people outside of your accountabilities is not helping people, but is actually hurting other people, because that will not get things fixed. If you're the inbox role holder, you're accountable for emptying the inbox every day, and you can't do it, you have a tension with it, then drop it, and Holacracy will fix it for you. That's one of the things, like just related to what Gabriela was talking about, tensions, sensing them, processing them, but also letting them be there, and let Holacracy fix it. Well, that was my part for this. Next up, we have Thomison. Yeah, Tom Thomison from Encode. He is a co-founder of Encode, also part of Holacracy One, and he will talk a little bit more about to you about Holacracy, also the pain points, and how can you overcome them. I'll give the floor to you. Give him an applause.
I have been dying to do this for a very long time. So this is the 6th meetup, right? And I would be back at Holacracy One, and they'd be all excited about being at the meetup in Amsterdam, and David would be here, and Ruben would be here, and they'd be up here on the crates. And everybody would be excited about being on the crates. And I was so jealous, because that would be so much fun to be hanging out with cool folks, talking about cool things. And I'm just really glad to be here at the 6th, I guess, Holacracy Meetup, which is pretty amazing to me, since Brian and I started Holacracy One back in 2007. Brian and I met in 2006 as just frustrated entrepreneurs trying to figure out there must be a better way. And you've heard Brian's story. I'm sure many of you have been through the PCTs. He's been here talking to you about Holacracy. I would maybe characterize myself as one of the first, or the chief unlearner, having to figure out what to forget about conventional management systems, what to let go of in terms of my understanding of what it is to be in organization. So I am an entrepreneur by heart, by nature. Holacracy One was actually my 5th startup over about a 30-year period. And when I met Brian, I had just transitioned out of my 4th entity, and I had sold that in a public transaction. And I was kind of at the top of my game, you know, kind of feeling pretty good, dealing with all the big management consultancies and doing all the things that we do in change management and organization design. And yet, you know what? I mean, just like Brian talks about, we keep trying to solve the same problem from the same level of perspective, using the same tools, and bringing the same really cool techniques like Agile and Lean and high-performance teams and all the other things that we tried to attack our organizational systems, and it has failed. So I kind of reached that same point of exhaustion of there must be a better way. for us to come together and express something we care about: work, purpose, passion, bringing all of ourselves to that game and playing it differently. So anyway, that's how Brian and I met in that search for There Must Be a Better Way. And I was looking for my next gig. I was looking for my next thing to launch. And Brian and I crossed paths in 2006 and did the classic partner sniff test. You know, am I good for you? Are you good for me? And should we take this thing that was not even yet named out of ternary software and seed it into a new company? And so we did that. 2007, March, it'll be 10 years this March. We started Holacracy 1, and we started bringing Holacracy out into the world. It really warms my heart to hear so much Holacracy speak in the room, like roles and accountabilities and domains and policies and strategies and circles. It's like, wow, this has become a business language. It is amazing. It is incredible to see how a universal language around business can change everything. I witness it in groups like this. I witness it in meetup groups all over the world that are practicing self-organizing principles in general, and Holacracy in particular, and it is just amazing. I think it bodes well for what's next. When we all have a common language and we're all aligned around purpose, magic can happen. Powerful things can happen. And that inspires me. So I'm here as a co-founder of Holacracy 1 for sure. I'm in love with Holacracy. I will never go back. There's nothing in the world that can take me back to the conventional system. And yet, I was always jealous of Brian because we used to do the trainings together way back in the day. We were just figuring it all out, so we'd do the practitioner trainings. And then we differentiated a bit, of course. He took the training role, and I took the implementation role. So I got the privilege to lead most of the implementations you read about. So I led Medium, led David Co., led Arca, led some of the early pioneers in self-organization. Was working with Brian on Zappos, leading that organization. So I kind of got a front row seat to see how this really lands with real folks and real organizations. I got to deal with the early pioneers, Vore and Morningstar, to see how they did it with their homegrown systems. And then the early pioneers here. I love Energized. I love Springest. I love that they took the risk to start changing the way they structure the organization. When Ruben would write in Medium and publish, we would all be giddy back at Holacracy 1. He said, "Did you read that on Medium? They get it. They really understand the shift." And with Energized, dealing with Diedrich and Kuhn, long before they started Energized, actually in their previous organization, they were some of the first movers, bringing self-organizing principles to Amsterdam, leading the way when nobody understood what that meant. Nobody had ever heard of Holacracy. So I've had the opportunity to play with these leading organizations and seeing how it actually lands and where the holes are, where the opportunities are to maybe do things a little bit better and different. And that's what brings me here to you today. Ever the Entrepreneur, about a year and a half ago, I saw that there was opportunities to improve a couple systems that we left behind. So you all know Holacracy is about organizing the work in pursuit of the organization's purpose. Full stop. Holacracy is a practice that is a complete wholesale replacement of the management hierarchy. Full stop. Way cool. We've all experienced that. The thing that it's silent on, of course, is the people. And we all know that too. There are multiple pathways to process attention in Holacracy? Absolutely, except when you have a personal tension. What happens when you have a personal tension in a governance meeting? Not pleasant things. Anybody been in a governance meeting with a personal tension and had that mirror held up to you and said, is this about you or about the organization? Is this about your personal preferences or the work of your role? And so Holacracy doesn't have a tension processing system for the people. And what about those power holders that actually ratify the Constitution, right? So founders or CEOs or entrepreneurs that ratify the Constitution, that have the authority to do so, and say, you know what, in my best judgment, I think it's best for our organization to adopt these principles to express the work of the organization. Awesome. But what about the power holders behind her or him? Like the board, like officers and directors, like the legal structure of the organization itself. So we've left behind a couple systems. And again, ever the entrepreneur, looking for opportunities to improve those, I started to ask other folks if they could see that opportunity too, and that ultimately led to the launching of Encode with a new purpose. Holacracy One's purpose, of course, is exquisite organization. It's all about the Constitution and exquisite expression of the organization's work in pursuit of purpose. But it didn't address the two other systems. And Encode's purpose is to address those systems. So our purpose is the legal, financial, and social foundations underpinning these self-organizing entities, to upgrade those two systems that we kind of left behind and bring them up to date with the same self-organizing principles, the same visibility and transparency, the same dynamic steering that we're accustomed to in the Constitution, and bring that to our legal structure and our people structure. And the interesting thing is, I'm not alone. This is a big deal. There are movements all over the world. Holacracy is moving in this space. Responsive.org, anybody tracking the responsive.org movement, maybe participating in those meetups too. I was out at their first annual conference in Silicon Valley in Berkeley. 400 people, all interested in self-organizing principles and changing the way we think about our organizations, changing the way we show up in our organizations. Teal, a la Fred Lelou in Reinventing Organization, anybody exposed to that work? Awesome work talking about the developmental stages that organizations go through. This is a thing in the world. This is not going anywhere. So I'm looking at how can we deepen our self-organizing principles beyond just the work. So if you think about Holacracy as self-organizing the work, how can we bring those very same principles to our other systems? So we've done this really, really well. We've figured out how to structure the organization, roles and accountability, circles within circles, nested circles, all to express organization work for purpose. And now it's time to look at some new systems. So I get asked all the time, of course, like you probably, can you tell me about Holacracy? What is it? Can you define it for me? And there are so many definitions of Holacracy. It's a self-organizing system. It's a power distribution system. It's a distributed everything system, right? So it is all of that, but it hangs on purpose. Purpose drives everything. It is a way to express purpose in the world. And so this is a cornerstone of the two systems that we need to upgrade, making them for purpose too. So Holacracy, another definition that I've come to use, Holacracy is a distinction event. It said, let there be a distinction. An organization is not a collective of like-minded, passionate people all coming together to do really cool work. It's something else. It's an organizational structure designed to express work in pursuit of purpose. So we want to take those same principles and now apply it to the two systems. So the next step, Encode.org, where Holacracy One and Holacracy was about differentiating from the people and the other systems. Encode is about integration, reintegrating that which we left behind, reintegrating the people systems and the legal systems. Because you know what? With Holacracy in place, one of the other definitions, Holacracy gets rid of bosses, right? Central command and control. It gets rid of the permission culture, having to seek permission. Well, without bosses, who needs employees? What are those? Why do we still have employees in this system? Trumped by authority outside the organization, and maybe in a second class or one down position from other constructs within the organization. And what about the board and founders and antique governance in our legal structures? So these are the things that we're paying attention to now and making new distinctions. I can't tell you how many times as a fellow entrepreneur I get other entrepreneurs coming up to me and asking about starting up one of these enterprises. And they're so frustrated that they have limited choices about legal structures, whether it's a BV in the Netherlands or an LLC in the US or a GmbH in Austria, Germany. These systems have old, antique structures. They have old governance, 200-year-old governance. It is time to give these an upgrade and reconnect them or integrate them with the organizational structure. So Encode is about this work. We are creating these new legal agreements. We're working with attorneys all over the world to create new legal structures to take that next evolutionary leap. So organizations like Springest and Energized and others that want to push the boundaries of power distribution out to the edges, we're now giving them the opportunity to do that with new legal structures. So we're creating some new containers. We're all really familiar with the organization space, right? The constitutions that play there, we're expressing organizational work. Encode is creating a new structure, the company space, which is all about the legal structure. The company's focus is the property or the assets of the company. So it's shareholders, it's stock, if you will, it's investment interests. So and it has a rule set too, an operating or legal agreement. So we're upgrading those so that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the company's assets, own shares, own a membership interest, own an investment stake in the organization, whether that be for profit or long-term equity appreciation. So we're creating these new legal structures in the company space. And then over in something we're currently calling association space, this is the container for us people, us individuals, us workers to show back up in and relate with and be in relationship with other folks that care about the purpose. So creating a new container where we can process interpersonal or intersubjective tension between each other. And we have a clear pathway to figure out how to work better together and separate that from the organization space. Here the focus again is the people, and the rule set is an association agreement that specifies how this structure works. Very similar to how the organization is structured with the Constitution. So creating brand new rule sets that tie all of these entities together so we can have an end-to-end system, a cohesive system where no power is held personally. This changes the game dramatically because it brings the focus back to the middle and it makes you, the individual that is energizing all that work, at focus. You in the middle, driving the work. You in the middle, having investment interests in the company you care about. You in the middle, having relationships and personal and professional relationships with the people you care about that you work with day in and day out. And it brings this person back in the middle and makes you kind of an agent, an independent agent, an agent of purpose that is aligned with the purpose of the organization in all forms, the company's assets, the people that are aligned, and the organization's work. So this is huge. It creates a self-organizing enterprise, if you will, beyond just organizing the work, an end-to-end entity that deals with the things that the organization needs most. The two most important assets of the organization, its capital structures and its people. We now have the capital structures and the people tied to the organization to express the organization's work. This is powerful. It allows you to be a purpose agent in this system and figure out what you need to do. And so we have this little picture here. You'll see some familiar faces. There are a lot of folks from Encode. We are also a global virtual organization. So we show up as purpose agents. We have all of our purpose agents here in Amsterdam for our regular meetup. So because we're global virtual, we get together every 6 to 8 weeks in person, and you'll see some encoders walking around here. And this looks like an innocent dinner, and it is. We have a lot of fun together. We show up first as ourselves with no overlays, no weird power overlays, right? And we can call each other into workspace or call each other into company space anytime we want. And we have the ability to step into that space with our fellow workers or not, all by choice, all conscious choice making, all for a purpose. So Encode's mission in the world is to create a brand new world where you can work earn, and live on purpose. And not just with one organization. Think about this. So if you have multiple organizations with the same similar legal structures, even across the world, and you have that same entity with the same operating system, Holacracy, nothing new to learn, and you have the same container for the people to show up, purpose agents, independent of the organization and any power overlays, you can have relationships with multiple organizations at the same time. And this is exactly what I am doing. So I have a relationship with Holacracy still. I'm a partner there. I'm a key investor there. I sit on the anchor circle. I'm the investor context link there. I have a relationship with Holacracy One, and I have a relationship with Encode, an organization that I'm nurturing as a startup, and I have the same legal relationship with another organization that has taken this step in Austria, and I have multiple relationships on purpose with multiple organizations that are structured this way. I think this is the new world of work. It allows us the freedom to choose where we want to spend our time and energy and show up for organizations whose purposes we care about and find new ways to work, earn, and live on purpose. So that's my message on Encode, a little bit of my history with Holacracy One. I love them both. I love that you guys are here exploring this, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, I have a question. When you talk about sort of decoupling the legal structure from the people in the organization and the way it's organized now, I immediately have to think about like the blockchain and the distributed autonomous organizations. Is this a space you're exploring as well?
Absolutely. I attended the D10E conference. It's the Decentralize Everything conference that really started with the cryptocurrency crew. And so when you think about it, when I say that the company is all about the property and the assets, that should be a trigger. Because the blockchain is the best place to store assets, property. So Encode is also creating a platform that will allow us to encode these agreements, these legal agreements that you've made with these organizations, and record the property that you hold in those organizations in the blockchain, and make that an immutable contract or transaction. And we're working with the distributed autonomous organization folks too. The interesting thing there, I kind of have a love-hate relationship. Anybody know about the DAOs or hear about or read about DAOs? Really cool concept. There's a lot I love about it. There's an elegance in having algorithms manage the contractual relationships and distributing the work. But the thing is, they feel a little disembodied. They feel more mechanical, like Mechanical Turk or piecemeal work. They lack purpose. They lack that texture. They lack the interaction between other purpose agents that care about the purpose. So I think what we're creating here is a hybrid. It is a distributed, not so autonomous, but an on-purpose organization that utilizes the best of those algorithms and the best of the future blockchain to store those things that we care about, like property and agreements.
Cool. Thanks. Can I ask?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I got a bunch of questions, but so I can see the company part. You know, as there's stuff that needs to evolve there and stuff. But maybe do you have an example of what prompts you to work on the whole people part, or you call it the association? I think like what would be a practical example of I don't know, stuff that leads to that at all?
Great question. Behavior norms.
Okay.
What kind of behaviors do we want to expect from the people that we work with day in and day out? What kind of normative behaviors are we looking for? And at Encode, we have a whole list of them. So we want individuals that are aware of the various contexts they're in. Are they in organization space? Are they showing up as themselves? Do they have attention about their roles? And bring contextual awareness so we can navigate these spaces better. So we want individuals that can do that. We encode that as a behavior norm. We want individuals that can sense and process tension and notice gaps as soon as they arrive.
So you mean also like how kind of in Holacracy you have to be able to know or be able to discern you're talking from this role now and to this role now and from this role at this other point?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
it is super important there for sure. Good tension processing, as Gabriela said, there are many pathways to process attention. So one of the capacities you need to develop as a good holacracy practitioner is that sense ability. The ability to sense in what are you feeling from what role and what circle and what capacity. And is this an operational tension, tactical meeting? Is this a role tension with another role? Go direct. Is this a governance tension? Go to a governance meeting. Is this something outside the scope of your circle? Go to a rep link. So you need to develop the sense capacity in the organization space. But at the same time, you need to develop a sense capacity of how well do you understand your partners, your other purpose agents, and how well are you working in a cohesive system with them.
So has this come about also from seeing people have like this interpersonal trouble in the holacracy system, like weird things in tacticals, for example, or whatever, or governance? Or
Yeah, actually in pain. So you might have experienced this yourselves. You're in a formal process, and you're really feeling either shut down or not heard personally. You have voice in your role, but there's something missing, and you have no avenue to address that with the individual or the group that is triggering that pain. So we want a space where that's okay.
So we want a spoiler of how that's going to look?
I do, but I'm outside the scope of this talk.
Okay. All right.
Yes, right back here.
You talk a lot about purpose and purpose of the company. So is it also for traditional companies a step beyond making just money or revenue or maximizing profits?
Yeah, absolutely. So it changes the notion even of a for-profit organization. This is not for-profit, nor is it not for-profit. It is something else. It is for purpose. So the legal agreement, one of the key shifts we make in the legal structure, and we've done this, we're doing this in the Netherlands, and we've done this in Austria, and we've certainly done this in the States. We shift the key concern. Sometimes in legal speak, it's called a fiduciary. It's a greater concern. In most legal structures, that greater concern is for the shareholder, making it all about profit. In our legal agreement, it's for purpose. So we change the whole notion that the organization, the company is formed to sense and understand its own destiny, to pursue its own purpose, and the fiduciary of all the investors and all the members and all the role holders are to that purpose. It's the first concern. And this changes everything inside these enterprises. So this is a legal form of a for-purpose entity. Right back here in the middle.
You're in the Netherlands, we have relatively rigid labor laws and stuff like that. How much can you do as an organization, and where do you get to the boundaries, what fits within our current national legal construct?
Yeah, it will definitely push against issues of labor laws and social norms, social benefits, health and medical benefits, insurance, all of those will be pushed against and reframed, refocused. So think about it though. What I said was, in a system without bosses, with no central authority figure, who needs employees? Most labor laws are related to employment regulation. Qualified, non-qualified, part-time, full-time, and employee counts. Guess what? These entities have no employees. And just full stop. So with no employees, those laws don't apply to those individuals, just like they don't apply to all the legal members of entities today. So if you're a founder, you're a legal partner, you're not an employee, you're not bound by labor laws. You're a legal member, a legal partner. So it changes that dramatically. Now that said, we need to map a path, a migration path, for those benefits and that care and concern that we're giving employees, and to find a way to transition and remap them and make them available for the broader partnership, like collective social care, collective health insurance, retirement programs, or professional development programs. Everything that we think of as human resources related to employee development can now be repurposed into that new container, the association space. And we can make choices about our own development, our own education, what we want to do to grow, and that all is self-directed from the inside out, not from the outside in. Other questions? Thank goodness.
You talked about changing legal structures and things like that. In all practicality, that will also probably mean you have different types of contracts. Are you expecting those to be available in like a Creative Commons license? Is that proprietary, or how can other organizations access those?
Sure. It is the intention of Encode to cultivate a community of practice around law. We're working with attorneys in the US, in the EU, in Canada, and then make these legal agreements open source and available. So we can all benefit from them and use them as templates to start doing our own work to create our own legal agreements. We're doing kind of the heavy lifting of finding the most suitable, the most flexible current legal structure to embed these principles in. And this saves us from trying to convince local legislation from creating new legal structures, which takes decades. So we're taking a stealthy approach. We're using exactly what's there that gives us the maximum flexibility to bake in self-organizing principles that grounds them and makes them valid in various jurisdictions. And then we kind of create a meta layer of how all this works across multiple legal structures. It's kind of super cool. Especially when you can encode that in blockchain technology and make that available across multiple organizations.
So
right here, yes.
There were a couple homegrown holacratic groups, right? Like Buurtzorg here in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Morningstar.
Yes.
Have you run into any homegrown of this variety of?
I've run into many that are experimenting and kind of running into some roadblocks because they're approaching it from kind of a conventional frame of not a self-organizing frame. So they don't have the luxury of being in a distributed authority practice like Holacracy. And in order to make this work, let me be clear, in order to make this work, you need a robust, mature management and control system for distributed governance. You have to have something like Holacracy, otherwise you can't attempt to gut current legal agreements and change the governance structure there. You have to rely on a tried and true, mature governance system like Holacracy. So most folks are approaching it from a different perspective and running into a lot of roadblocks, but they're very creative and trying and experimenting with different things. Back here? Yeah.
Holacracy is being presented as an operating system. How can you describe your practice by contributing Holacracy? So how does it match? Because they were saying, you know, Holacracy is the operating system. Is this
yes.
So app or something?
It's related to my first answer, my last answer, which might not have been so clear. In all legal structures, there is a section, a paragraph, a clause that talks about management and control, the management and control of the company. And it's usually around shareholder rights and officers and directors and voting rights and who gets to do what to who personally. We gut that. We completely eliminate it. And we specify that the management and control system of the company is Holacracy. And so we use Holacracy as the governance system of the company, and we link them together. So the anchor circle, for those of you who are familiar with that construct, becomes really interesting, because now it's the integration point of the company's asset and the people and the organizational operational expression, the GC, the general circle, and it's an integration point to process tensions in that container. Yes.
Yeah. What's the outlook on like? You're saying you're looking in the U.S. and Europe. How easy is it to get this like done? Is it different, for example, for Holland and Belgium and France, or is this like is there European stuff? Like what's stopping you? Or or not?
Yes, it's back to selecting the most flexible vehicle, legal structure in each of the local jurisdictions. So we're honestly looking, and I spent the entire day with Energize today. And so you might guess what we talked about. And it's looking at Netherlands legal structures to identify one that's well suited to embed these principles. And that takes work with local attorneys that are familiar with these structures, that have an open enough mind to think about doing things differently, and then creating the legal operating agreements or shareholder agreements or bylaw agreements that would be valid in those jurisdictions. So once that's done, though, it's easy